Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. Thank you, Chika Unigwe, for having me here. I'm Nigerian, but I'm also Belgian, especially when I need to get a visa to South Africa or Kenya. Because each time I've tried to get a visa to these countries with my Nigerian passport, I have been told it would take ages to process, and being Nigerian, I might be denied visa entirely. Now, that said, when I use my Belgian ID card in Europe, it is checked about 1 trillion times. On my way down here last week, I was in London last week, on my way down from Brussels, the immigration officer kept me back for some 20-odd minutes because my hairstyle has changed since the passport photograph in the ID card was taken. I told her I'm a woman, we change hairstyles often. And today again, I was held back because I had a much wider smile in the photograph than I was, than I was inclined to give the officer at the desk. So I moved to Belgium in 1995, right after my degree exams, with a brand new degree and a brand new husband. I met my husband in Nsukka while I was still an undergrad student at the University of Nigeria. We got married, and when he moved back to his country, I followed him. Nigerians deal well with culture shocks because we are such enthusiastic travelers, but also because we are very fantastic storytellers. I remember my mother saying once that the only way to understand the cold of winter was to stick your head in the freezer until your ears went numb. I tried it. But no one could prepare me for how to survive in a society where nothing I knew mattered. Not social etiquette, not language, especially not language. In the weeks before we moved to Belgium, Jan, my husband, tried to teach me his language. So armed with a teach-yourself Dutch book under his arm and the patience of a mother, he tried to teach me to pronounce the perfect I. Huis, Chika, huis, not house. And then he had me repeating ha, 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 until I no longer said ha, 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 or ga, ga, ga. I listened to him shout instructions in Dutch to Simba the dog, who, by the way, was a quicker learner than I was. And I watched Simba to decipher what the shouted instructions meant. I learned a few phrases the Teach Yourself Dutch book had assured me would come in handy, plus a few scattered words. But in my first weeks of being in the country, when Jan's extended family visited to meet me, some of whom spoke no English, the phrases and words I had learned were of absolutely no use to me. I mean, I couldn't ask them, do you know the way to the post office? Or what time does the train leave, please? So I was reduced to childlike nodding and smiling, completely dependent on Jan to translate for me. And even when we had family gatherings with those who did speak English, they would return to Dutch occasionally. And Jan would sometimes forget to translate, caught in the passion of the conversation. In those early days, misunderstanding was rife. Once, a very friendly aunt-in-law, wishing to draw me out, asked me if I wanted to go out with her to look at flowers at the florist's, or so I thought. I was happy enough to go, except that she took me to a cemetery to admire flowers. And if I had understood her enough, I would never have gone, because being the superstitious Igbo woman that I am, I'm averse to disturbing the spirits of strangers. I couldn't go shopping without Jan. I couldn't go out on my own. My self-esteem plummeted. I developed panic attacks, too scared to leave the bed once Jan had gone to work. Terrified to pick up the telephone when it rang, I had conversations with myself. The depth of loneliness I experienced was so abysmal that I struggled to articulate it. Now, whereas I had written in Nigeria, had indeed discovered the therapeutic power of writing as a teenager, dealing with the angst that teenage should dump someone, I found it impossible to write now when I needed to the most. I found it impossible to write, not in any language. Now, there is this beautiful quote attributed to the 13th century philosopher Rumi, which says, "Every language is a longing for home." And I think it means that language roots us. And without it, if you remain outside of a language, if you cannot shop, cannot communicate, cannot converse, because you lack the necessary words, then you're like a ghost floating, existing at the margins of society. So Rumi says that all language is a longing for home. And to that, I'd like to add that personally, I feel that language is home. At the same time, language is the key to that home. Because without language, one is locked out. And without that key, you remain locked out. Every language encapsulates a worldview. And we cannot even begin to understand that worldview, let alone dialogue with it or challenge it, if we remain outside of its language. Now consider the popular Italian saying, traditore, traditore, translator, traitor. For instance, there is this Igbo word, ndo, in Yoruba it's bele, and I'm sure other African languages have it. But we translate it to sorry. But sorry, as used in the West, is a very poor translation of ndo because it lacks the empathy of ndo. Ndo means I am with you, I share your pain, I cry with you. No one needs to explain that empathy when you use sorry in Nigeria or in any other African country that I know of. Now you transpose it to the West, and you have to explain yourself. Sorry in the West is an apology, which is why the very many times I've used sorry to mean ndo with my Western friends, I've been told, you didn't cause it, no need to be sorry. To which I tend to reply, yes, I know, but I have no other word to articulate what I feel. Now, I'm a writer. I thrive on words. Language is my passion. And so when I lack words or language, it is torture. To escape that torture, I had to overcome my fear of leaving home. I started intensive language lessons at the Catholic University of Leuven. It was a breath of fresh air to be able to string words together which made sense to the listener, and for them to respond and find out that I understood them. My confidence came back, and I began to write again. I also began to explore Belgium on my own, hopping on and off trains. I wanted an experience of Belgium that was mine. I was also curious to find out how other people, fellow Nigerians mainly, dealt with this very vexing issue of living in a foreign language. And so when I learned that a vast majority of the African prostitutes in Antwerp were Nigerian, my curiosity became unbearable. A bit about myself. I come from a very conservative Catholic home. And I remember being young and loving this song, move closer, move your body real close until it feels like we are really making love. Well, the only way I could sing it was by substituting making love with baking bread. So I'd go, until it feels like we are really baking bread. So coming from that sort of background to seeing girls dressed in lingerie in display windows, the shock was enormous. And for those who may not know, if you take the train past Brussels North, any time of day, 7 days a week, you go past the red light district, and regardless of what time of day it is, you're guaranteed to see these girls all ready for work, looking out from their showcases. If you get close enough, you can hear them rap on the windows to attract stragglers. When I started writing again, I began to explore this theme of Nigerian prostitutes in Antwerp in short stories, answering the questions this knowledge opened up to me in the only way that I could. But imagination has its limits. And so in 2004, haunted by both curiosity and the desire to create rounded characters for the novel I was writing, I put on a miniskirt, high-heeled boots, and I went to the red light district of Antwerp to talk to its Nigerian women. And this wasn't an easy decision for me to take, not only because I had my ideas of these women whom I had yet to meet. It's intriguing how we're often convinced from the comfort of our homes that we know all there is to know about a certain group of people because of what we've read, of what we've seen on TV. The first one I spoke up to, I remember, I spoke to her in, the first one I walked up to, I spoke to her in Pidgin English, and she responded in standard educated English. The second one I walked up to, I spoke to in standard English, she responded in Pidgin. I went to confirm my prejudices. I came out completely changed. I heard different stories, stories of girls who became prostitutes so that they could look after their families, offer their children a better future. I heard of an auction house in Brussels where Nigerian girls are auctioned off to Nigerian pimps. So these girls bribe managers of bands built to perform in Belgium to add their names to the list of band members. They come in hoping to be bought at an auction, where they are paraded naked with name tags around their necks. They smile and twirl as their particular qualities are reeled off, and all the while they do not speak. I heard of corrupt officials whose language was limited to the demand for free sex from illegal prostitutes they arrest in exchange for letting them off. There were tragic stories, but there were also happy stories. Stories of girls with big dreams, but also normal stories of everyday laughter and tears, of missing home and throwing parties. And so what I discovered between their lives and mine, the lives I had thought so far apart that they could never merge, was a shared language, the language of humanity. But I also discovered a common thread that ran through their stories, a shared lack, a lack of the necessary language needed to integrate into the wider community. I empathize with this lack because I know the sort of fear and loneliness it can bring with it. I know the way it can decimate the spirit. In a society where they are already marginalized, the inability to speak the language makes the marginalization even worse, because language helps to democratize power. And of all the girls I've met in the past 5 years, I think no one demonstrated this any better than a girl called Isoke. Earlier this year, I met this incredible Nigerian woman called Isoke Aikpitani. Isoke was trafficked at 18, brought in through Heathrow to Milan, where she worked as a prostitute for some years, helping to offset her mother's medical bills. When her mother, back in Benin City, died of cancer, Isoke quit. At 25, Isoke is married to a wonderful Italian man, and with his support, has opened up a halfway home for trafficked Nigerian women who want to quit the sex trade. Isoke's seed is growing. She asks nothing of the girls but a willingness to integrate into the larger Italian community by taking language courses. She understands the power of language. Isoke's Italian is perfect, and with the help of an Italian journalist friend, she's written a book on the girls of Benin City, stories of girls like her from Benin City working or who had worked as prostitutes in Italy. Isoke is no minister's daughter. Her father, a civil servant who earned about 75 euro a month, abandoned her mother when Isoke was a child. And Isoke's mother struggled to raise her and her 7 siblings on proceeds from her petty trade. Isoke's husband is not wealthy. You're not going to find his name anywhere. You're not going to find his name on the Forbes list or any such list. But he has a belief in his wife's mission. Isoke is not afraid to tell her story, and in fact, she does so regularly all over Italy. Her passion is incredible. Her generosity of spirit is humbling. And she's proof for me that our destiny is in our hands, that we can empower ourselves, and that it is only when we are willing to confront our demons, only when we are willing to overcome our fear of failure and to dive straight in, only when we are willing to take the difficult route, it is only then that we can begin to live our dreams and inspire others to dream. Thank you.